Yo, what's up, guys? Teacher Paul here, and today we have a coffee request from Susan from Germany who says World War II in Germany. Actually, Susan is also from Sweden, so bear with me here. How Germans deal with its dark past. This is going to be a very interesting video. Can't wait to learn how Germans deal with their dark past. When I was in the German school, World War II came really often as a topic, and we learned how to prevent it happening again. And we visit a lot of places such as memorials of Jewish people and read a lot of books about Anne Frank or White Rose. This is really interesting, guys. Let's check this out. So this is from a channel called DW Euromax. And when I went to Germany, I went to a few places like the Holocaust. Was it museum? I think it's not the museum. It's where there are the walls. You know the. Oh man, I don't know the name. I forgot the name now, but I went there. And then also the Berlin Wall, which was interesting to see as well. But it was a very interesting place to be because it's full of history and just full of, dang, it's like it's surreal to be there. But anyways, let's check this out.
Mention the war. That's a very well-known catchphrase from the British comedy series
Really?
Fawlty Towers.
Oh,
the idea behind
Fawlty Towers, man, I used to watch this as well. Dang.
Very well-known catchphrase from the British comedy series Fawlty Towers.
Have you guys ever seen Fawlty Towers?
The idea behind it is when you meet a German, the very first thing you think about will be the war, but you absolutely mustn't mention it. So anyway, imagine my surprise when I was channel hopping on one of my first trips to Germany, and the war was everywhere. It felt like every day the television schedule was peppered with heavy Hitler documentaries and World War II films. That's how I came to appreciate for the first time that Germany as a whole doesn't ignore its dark past.
Nice.
But this wasn't always the...
That's important. It's important that they don't ignore and they acknowledge and they try to learn. So I think what I was trying to remember is the memorial to the murdered Jews of Europe. It's an outdoor memorial consisting of 2,711 concrete slabs or stela arranged in a grid on a sloping field. That's what Google is telling me here. But yeah, that's exactly where I was.
This time that Germany as a whole doesn't ignore its dark past. But this wasn't always the case. For many years after the war, National Socialism was mostly a taboo topic among families. Parents and grandparents weren't asked uncomfortable questions.
It was
about
too
their
soon,
involvement.
I guess. Too
Some
soon.
films and books, like Günter Grass's The Tin Drum, began exploring the topic, but it was a spate of anti-Semitic vandalism in West Germany starting in 1959, which proved to be a wake-up call. A new focus was put on education, and by the time Germans of my generation were in school, the Holocaust and National Socialism were a firm feature on the curriculum. Many also began to ask questions about their own family's involvement.
Oh, that's another
Of course,
topic.
it's hard or even impossible to...
That's another topic because people will obviously have family who was involved because it's quite recent. It's not like it's thousands of years ago. It's literally less than 100 years ago. So obviously you will have grandparents or even great-grandparents, depending on how old you are right now, but mostly grandparents. You will have grandparents that were there working, you know, which is an interesting topic. It's a awkward conversation with your grandparents though, but you know.
Of course, it's hard or even impossible to compare the atrocities of the Holocaust with any other event. But I, for one, heard very little about my own country's darkest chapters during history lessons or in public discussion. So for an outsider, it can be quite remarkable to see this painful history raked over so often and so publicly in Germany. An important
And
motivation
the world
is fear
won't
of
let
history
won't
repeating
let them
itself.
forget.
Recent years have seen the re-entry of a far-right political party into parliament and several horrific murders by right-wing extremists. Permanent police presence at many of Germany's synagogues is reminder enough that the shadow of anti-Semitism remains. So, how relevant is Germany's history today, and how much responsibility do Germans still carry for it?
And not only in Germany, I would say, but around the world, we've seen a lot of nationalist parades, I would say, around the world, and it's a growing trend, which is scary, if you ask me.
Deutschen können nicht stolz sein auf unsere Geschichte.
Nur weil es so lange her ist und jetzt keiner persönliche Schuld mehr hat, glaube ich nicht, dass man jetzt einfach sagen kann, es war ja keiner.
Wir können nichts dafür, unsere Kinder nicht, unsere Enkel nicht. Also irgendwann müsste ja mal Schluss sein.
70, 80 Jahre danach zu sagen, wir tragen daran Schuld, fände ich viel zu groß. Aber ich glaube, wir tragen eine Verantwortung, dass wir es irgendwo verhindern, dass sowas wieder passiert.
Wird in Deutschland genug, zu wenig oder zu viel darüber gesprochen?
Ach, man kann gar nicht genug darüber sprechen.
Manchmal denke man, es ist zu viel des Guten. Immer wieder, immer wieder, immer wieder.
Ich glaube, es ist immer in Deutschland ein totales Tabuthema.
It
Es wird
is?
viel gesprochen, aber die Aufmerksamkeitsspanne, die wird immer
Do you think
kleiner,
it's still a taboo or no?
um das Gesprochene auch zu bewerten.
Gerade wenn man von der Schule zum Beispiel nach Hause kam und sowas gelernt hat, hat man halt natürlich auch die Eltern gefragt oder die Großeltern.
Die Eltern, die noch aus der Zeit kamen, die wollten sich in gewisser Weise, auch wenn sie nichts damit zu tun hatten, distanzieren.
Was mich nur immer wieder erstaunt ist, dass diese Generation angeblich nicht davon wusste, was damals passiert ist.
Haben Sie manchmal
Really?
Angst, dass sowas wieder passieren könnte?
Ja, durchaus, ja, habe ich.
Also es kann
So there are mixed replies here. Some people say that it's talked about a lot. Some people say it's still a taboo. Some people say have no idea what's going on or what was going on. And it's interesting also that in parts of the world, some people they dismiss it entirely. Some people actually say that the Holocaust never happened. And have you ever seen those discussions around or no?
jederzeit wieder passieren. Wir sind jetzt nicht weder klüger als die Menschen damals noch Gott sonst irgendwas.
Nein, keine Angst. Hier bei uns in Europa haben wir genug gelernt, der Erste und der Zweite Weltkrieg. Ich glaube nicht, dass das sowas kommt. Die Menschheit ist vernünftig geworden.
Hosting Meet the Germans has made me realise that the consequences of the Nazi era can be felt all over the place in Germany. Some things are obvious, like you don't come across very many Adolfs these days.
Yeah.
But then the war and the Nazis also came up when I was
We were talking about this the other day, that this name Adolf really lost its popularity, but it used to be a common name. It used to be a popular name back in the day. And now, not so common. It's hard for people to name their children Adolf without thinking of, Hitler. It just is what it is nowadays. But do you guys think that's a nice name? Adolf? I know that it's associated with this terrible person, but the name itself, it's just too soon for people to start using that name again, right? Do you think people will ever use that name? In other countries, is it forbidden? Wow, that whole name is forbidden to use? Wow. But I think in other parts of the country, other parts of the world, Adolfo, for example, is still used. The Latin version of it.
don't come across very many Adolfs these days. But then the war and the Nazis also came up when I was researching episodes on things like hiking, films, fashion, all sorts of seemingly unrelated topics. This has had an unmistakable effect on national pride. You rarely see the German flag flying here, unless the World Cup is on. And there's no visible pride in the armed forces either. In fact, it seems the country's military is more often ridiculed than celebrated.
Really?
That's not to say that most Germans are not proud of their country. Many are, but their patriotism is usually quiet and practical rather than loud and emotional. Germans are also among the most pro-EU Europeans. One of the organisation's founding purposes was, after all, to promote peace in Europe. Some reminders of the war are visible when walking around the streets too. Take this building, the Haus der Kunst or House of Art in Munich. It's a prominent example of Nazi architecture.
It was
So
a
what
dark
do you do
history.
with something like this?
Dark
Is it enough
past.
to take something tainted and do something good with it, or does it need to be removed? After years of discussion about various buildings like this one, the jury's still out.
Okay. What do you guys
What
think?
about memorials to the victims of the Nazis? They can be found all over the place in Germany, often organised and financed by the
I've
local
seen
community.
quite a few when I was in
It
Berlin.
wasn't until 2005 that the German government unveiled its first official memorial to Europe's murdered Jews. The haunting Holocaust Memorial in central Berlin
That's where I
has become one of
was.
the capital's most visited landmarks. 3 years later came the state's first memorial dedicated to homosexual victims, and in 2012 one for Roma and Sinti victims. One subtle yet striking part of the memorial culture in Germany are the Stolpersteine, or stumbling stones. These small brass squares are inscribed with the names of victims of the Nazi regime and set into the pavement outside their last known address. The project was started in the 90s by German artist Gunter Demnig, and today there are more than 75,000 stumbling stones across Germany and other countries. But even this is not without controversy. The city of Munich has actually banned the stones from being installed on public ground after some people, including a prominent Jewish community leader, argued that it was disrespectful to commemorate victims with something on the ground that you can
Okay, I
walk
see.
over. The city has instead opted for wall plaques like this one.
I mean, oh man. What do you guys think of that? I mean, I don't know what to think of that. I think people were trying to do something respectful, try to do something good, but there will always be criticism. I mean, I understand you're walking over a plaque, but it's just symbolic, right? It is there at least. Some people look at the ground. I think it's more visible if it's on the ground. And it also can symbolize where on the ground you stepped is where they were, they were killed. I don't know. What do you guys think of that? Do you think it's such a bad thing to have it on the ground? I understand the idea here. And thank you for the 400 follows. That's pretty cool. Thank you so much. I know it's an awkward timing because we're talking about something pretty serious here, but I just want to acknowledge, thank you for the follow, okay? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys.
But I want to bring it back to where we started. Comedy. Hitler and the Nazis have been satirized many times over. British
Charlie Chaplin, one of the biggest critics of World War II.
But I want to bring it back to where we started. Comedy. Hitler and the Nazis have been satirized many times over. British silent movie star Charlie Chaplin kicked things off way back in 1940 with The Great Dictator. In 2019, New Zealand director Taika Waititi confidently poked fun at the Führer in Jojo Rabbit. But what about in Germany? Could you, for example, write a book imagining Hitler waking up in modern-day Berlin? How he might react to Angela Merkel and multiculturalism? How he might rise to fame, but this time as a TV star? Well,
now
that's
with
exactly
AI?
what German author Timur Vermeersch did. His 2012 book, ist wieder da, or in English, Look Who's Back, topped the bestsellers lists in Germany and was later made into a film.
Ich fand einfach den Widerspruch, die Fallhöhe so enorm. Beim Lesen von Mein Kampf generell dieses, auf der einen Seite haben wir den Typ, der sich für ein Genie hält, und auf der anderen Seite, von der ersten Seite an lesen Sie, dass da einer um Anerkennung bettelt, und diese Widersprüche geben eben eine sehr schöne Möglichkeit für Humor.
Haben manche Leute dann gesagt, dass sie zu weit gegangen sind?
Ja. Aber sie konnten es nicht wirklich begründen. Sehr häufig stößt man halt auf nicht viel mehr als ein antrainiertes Tabu, das aber nicht untermauert ist. Die Lesereaktionen waren sehr unterschiedlich. Die einen fanden das verstörend, wie man es in diesem Kopf so lange aushält, und der Kopf ist ja nicht verändert worden. Das ist ja sehr, sehr original Hitler. Und andere sagten dann, hey, super, wie er der Merkel einen drauf gibt, der sagt, was noch mal gesagt werden muss. Die haben nach sehr kurzer Zeit dann auch vergessen, wer da zu ihnen spricht. Der Leser ist mit dem Buch allein. Er hat die Möglichkeit zu sagen, das ist zu viel, so nicht. Da hören wir jetzt mal auf. Aber er macht's nicht, weil es so schön witzig ist.
Now it's time for you to have your say.
It's a
What do
brave
you
thing
think
to
about
do.
how Germany deals with its past? And have you got any other questions? Let me know in the comments.
It's a risky step for a German to satire Hitler, because it's something that, I don't know, what do you guys think of it? I think it's one of the things that the world kind of is allowed to do, but it's one of those things that if a German person does it, I know Hitler, he was Austrian, right? But he is most known for being the leader of Germany. So it's a complicated thing here, where you kind of feel like it feels very risky, because if you do something and somebody mocks you for it, it's fine. But if you do something bad and then you mock yourself, it's really risky. You have to be really, really smart about it, because otherwise it feels like you're taking that bad thing and you're kind of like putting fuel on the fire. So it is interesting to see how that, how people react to that. But I think Germans wouldn't mind a German author making comedy about Hitler, as long as he doesn't push the other way, because it could be misconstrued by the rest of the world as well, if you know what I mean. It's just that I'm imagining a few scenarios in my head where this could definitely go wrong. Other countries are saying too often, oh yeah, no, that's not satire. That's just people being racist, I guess. You can't call citizens by that name. That's crazy. That's literally crazy. I didn't know people were doing that. That's crazy. But anyways, this is an interesting topic here, because I never thought of how this is dealt in Germany. But let me know your thoughts, guys. Are you guys more reserved when it comes to that topic? Do you find it uncomfortable? Obviously, like if you are in a dinner date, for example, you're not going to bring up the topic. But when you're among friends and you're discussing the war, in the right place, in the right time, are you comfortable talking about it or not? I find it to be a very heavy topic, even though I'm not from Germany or anything like that. But it's interesting to talk about. History is, as long as it's educational, it's very interesting to talk about. I think people can learn from it, as long as there's no, there's no racism going on, or there's nothing. Because you got to remember, people who live nowadays, even though they do have this responsibility of making it never happening again, a lot of people have been saying, oh, it wasn't us, like we saw in the video. Maybe that's not the right thing to say. Instead of saying it wasn't us, maybe you should start saying it won't be us. Okay? It was our generation, our past generation, but it won't be us. Instead of saying it wasn't us, because that feels like you're deflecting, you're taking the blame off of yourself or your country. I know you weren't there, but if you start saying it won't be us, it means that you're not brushing off the past. You're learning that you won't be the future and do it again. You know what I'm saying? It won't be us. We won't do it again. It won't be us. I don't know. Sometimes language really matters in these topics. But I've spoken a little bit more than I should, maybe. And I will see you guys on the next video. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Susan, for bringing this video. Go over to Buy Me a Coffee or to Patreon to watch full movie reactions, shows, and series, including some war movies, which you might enjoy. So subscribe to the channel, like, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.